Okay, so now we're going to look at the completion of this question. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to make a rectangle in plan, and maybe I'll use a different colour of pink just to fit it in. So I want to put the rectangle in plan as to what the size of this shape is meant to be. So I'm going to draw my 45 degrees. Now make sure I draw it from D in the elevation. Draw that down, and then I'll bring down C. I'll bring down my centre line because it's probably the most important ones. That'll be all I'll bring down for the minute. And I'll bring this across. Okay. And I'll bring down these lines. Okay, so hopefully that looks okay on the visualizer. So I'm going to mark here, maybe I'll use a different colour of red just to highlight the points. So C is this point here, B is up in the air here, and A is here. And then we have D, which is here. Okay, that's the center point there. So it's going to come down a curve like this, but there's an angle cut off, so it's actually going to come back towards B as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start like I normally did with these heights here on the right hand side, and then we'll worry about the rest of them then in a second. So I'm going to start here with H1. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to take H1, as the compass is the most accurate way of transferring. You can transfer with a set square and a measurement, but just be careful that you don't accidentally mismeasure it. You would get away with it, but it probably wouldn't be best practice. So I'm going to take a height there, and again make sure you're coming down the way from B. Okay, so I'll highlight that in H1. I'm going to draw that line across. That gives me the width one. So basically what width that would look like, or if I slice through that exactly, this is the exact shape that I get the bit inside of that. So there's two ways of bringing this down. Maybe I'll bring it down this way just to show a method picture. So that can come down there. So you can do this. The only problem with this method is you may have a lot of points as the question progresses, but this is perfectly fine. There's a point on this side, there's a point on this side, and if I want to draw this in, that's W. Yeah. So this is a perfectly acceptable method. You just need to watch the lines. I'm going to pick the next one. So maybe purple. This is H2. Okay, so my purple there is looking a bit black when I go over the yellow line, but hopefully I'm okay. So again, I'll use my compass to transfer it. Okay, so there I nearly made a mistake. It's coming down the way. So just be careful, it's coming down from the top. Okay, so the alternative way of, let's bring that down there. Again, it sort of comes out nearly looking black on that. But the alternative way of projecting, which is normally the way that I project it, because I find it a little bit less messy in terms of the amount of lines you have, but there's no more marks for one way or another. It's just whatever you would feel is easiest, really. Is this. So I'll bring this line across here. I'm just going to take my compass. Okay, so there's W2. Now we do another one for W3. So what colour have I used? So sort of have a browny yellow or a browny orange here. Okay. So you can see, if any people have done the Dubai Yacht Club question, it's very similar. Okay, it's pretty much the same type of thing. Okay. So there's H3 and there's W3. So I'm just calling H for the height, W for the width. So the heights are from the elevation, the widths are from the plan. Or for the plan, I suppose. Okay. So each time I'm taking from the center there, and each time I'm putting it on the center. There's W3. Now, at this stage, what I want to do is I want to pick another height, right? the grey here, which I don't normally use. And it has to be here, because that's the widest that it's going to be. Okay, so there's H4. Okay, I probably should have written H3 beside this one. And again, the colour makes it easy, so you should have a set of colour pens in order to do this. So that's 110. So I suppose this is an alternative way you could bring it down. A little bit less accurate, but perfectly acceptable. So that was the H4, and this is W4. Now I always would still take the widths with the compass, even if I didn't transfer the heights across. Okay, the reason that would work is because they're really looking for the method, and you're not going to be 100% accurate one way or the other. So anyways, that's fine. So there's W4. Okay, so what I have now is what the curve looks like here before it was sliced off. And if it was never sliced off, I would have just done this as H5 and would have come as far as here. Okay, so I'm going to sketch this in. Okay, as I said, many of you have done the Dubai Yacht Club question. It looks very, very similar. Okay, now if it was never sliced, as happened in the Dubai Yacht Club question, actually the peak was sitting out, it would go as far as C. Okay, what happens is it's sliced. So because it's sliced, when you're looking down, it'll start to curve back in. They say this is inspired by the Sydney Opera House. So sort of a similar type of structure. Okay, so what we want to do is, again, we want to pick two more heights. Okay, so I'm going to use this one here, which I happen to have a line going up through already. Okay, so we'll call that H5. So that's a dark blue, but it may look a bit black on that. And I'll do my green. I'll pick another one. And someone asked me for how far should I pick it. It doesn't really matter. You can just guess. I just guessed. As long as it looks like they're roughly split into thirds. That's actually slightly thinner than that, but it doesn't matter. There's H6. So what I'm going to do is I'll just transfer them. We'll start with the H5, I suppose would make the most sense. And if you're taking this distance, make sure you're taking from here, not down to the ground, down to that dark green line, down to where the 15-degree line cuts it. So slightly, in my case, slightly below the H2. It doesn't matter where you pick it. It depends whether you pick that line or not. As long as you transfer that size. Okay. So that's a blue line under the purple line in case it's not exactly obvious. Okay, so you'll see that when we mark that, you can see all of a sudden now you're back in from where you are. And that's what I'd expect. And now what I'll do is do the last one. So H6. And then I'll just explain a little bit about why B and D are actually on the points. Okay, so I'm just double checking that. We ended up very close. It's just slightly shorter than that. Again, it may end up exactly the size. I just picked it as random. Okay. So again, I'll take my width. Make sure that that's lined up with that. And my line and plan. Okay, so there's W6, we'll call it. Okay, so I can now sketch in. I'm going to use a slightly different color. So 2 points should be sufficient. If you want, you could always draw an extra one. Really, the closer you are to here, the more useful it is. So if you want, you could draw another one, but that's really sufficient. So again, you'll see that it's very, very similar to what the old one is. Now, why is D and B exactly? Why are they there? Will you imagine if I brought up D and said, well, what height is it there? It's 0 height down. If I came down 0 from here, it'd be 0 width. And the same with B here. If I come up there, and I said, well, take a height from here, it's 0 height, come down 0, what's the width? It's no width. That's why they're exact points, if that makes sense. And that's the question completed.